Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Nick Zulovich, part of the team at Cherokee Media Group, and grateful you have joined us for our session titled Driving Success, Navigating Risk and Auto Recovery and Lending with DRN and MVTrac, featuring Mike Villanova, the company's Senior Sales Solutions Manager. Before we get to today's presentation, just a couple of quick items to mention. We are recording today's session, so keep watch of your inbox for a message containing a link to it so you can watch Mike's presentation again and share it with your colleagues. Also, if you have questions for Mike, please use the Q&A tab here on Zoom, and we'll get to those questions as time allows. So that's more than enough for me. Let's get right to Mike Villanova of DRN and MVTrac for our featured presentation. Mike, it's great to have you back. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Nick. Thank you very much. Appreciate you putting this together for us, letting us be part of the of today's presentation. We all set as far as screen sharing and everybody's able to see?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fantastic. I'll just kind of jump ahead here. Like Nick said, we're very much appreciative of our relationship with Cherokee. The last I saw, Nick was out at Used Car Week, and post-show feedback was that it was a huge success. Congratulations again to Cherokee Media for bringing all the aspects of auto and auto finance industry together. They always do a great job. And thanks for everyone who was joining today as well. We certainly appreciate you taking the time. Our discussion today is going to be focused on how leveraging DRN and MVTrac's cutting-edge LPR data and analytics capabilities will enhance risk management efforts, streamline asset recovery, and safeguard your lending portfolios, as all of those are challenges as we move into 24. What we heard at Used Car Week was a continued concern of what we have all heard all year. That is, what impacts economic pressures, inflation, interest rates, and interest rates are having on the auto finance market, and what these impacts might have in store for 2024. Many of our discussions, Nick, at Used Car Week, we had just talked about, you and I, consistently summarized 2023 as a year of slowly creeping delinquencies, a year that saw consumers maxing out their credit debt, continued challenges in the asset recovery markets, and legislative concerns at state and national levels. So today we'd like to focus on what DRN and MVTrac solutions deliver to help address these challenges as we head into what is shaping up to be a challenging 2024. So with that, I wanted to jump right into, what is LPR? We've been in the LPR market for a long time. DRN itself has been around 15 plus years. The backbone of our LPR vehicle location data is DRN's affiliate network. What is interesting, this slide has 240 million scans. What is interesting, over the last 4 months, the affiliate network has averaged in excess of 260 million LPR scans a month. Pre-COVID, those scans range in the 170 million range. This growth is a true testament to the success of LPR vehicle location data, as well as our agent network and all those who are affiliated with it on our side of the house, helping drive their success. With over 19 billion historical scans, we know where vehicle locations have been. So let's move on and start talking about identifying risk. As I mentioned, what they used to be in tow trucks, vehicles, flatbeds, now they primarily use spotter cars, and we've been doing it for a long period of time. So that 170 to 260 million by using spotter cars certainly enhances their geographic location and their ability to scan in places where the tow trucks just were difficult to get to. So we've been pretty successful in that process. Let's talk about streamlining the risk and efforts. Utilizing DRN's industry-leading LPR data can help identify potential risks to portfolios before loans actually go delinquent. So we're going to talk a little bit about those types of reporting and solution-based activities that are pre-assignment that can help lenders manage the risks without much of an effort because we have some of that data. When you look at our data and how many of our lenders use it, most of them use it certainly at assignment time and the ability to track their usage around their assignment orders, whether or not they use a forward model or a direct agent model or a hybrid model of both. The idea of using our data, the real opportunity is for a lender is to use our data earlier and to manage that early delinquency activity so that they can be much more prepared as to what happens around their delinquencies and the risk around them. So we have a number of ways to deliver for lenders to be proactive in managing their portfolio risks. One tool would be our DRN's portfolio analytics. Let me just slide over to here. Earlier on, so way before we go down the repo assignments or the total loss as you move down that collections waterfall, we've developed a process where DRN's portfolio analytics reporting can be used with lenders' internal risk modeling efforts. A lot of our lenders are starting to do risk modeling, propensity to skip, trying to use various data sources to predict where and when vehicles may go delinquent. So by using our vehicle location data and all of those historical scans, we can show you where that vehicle has been versus where you think that vehicle is. And as an additional data source in your modeling efforts, that could certainly help optimize and prevent risk, or at least prevent your risk portfolio from taking a deeper dive into the delinquency model, particularly as we head forward in 2024. Another area is our risk scoring process. So risk scoring is a process where you can cross-reference your system of records given addresses with our historical DRN scans over a 12-month period of time. So knowing where your collateral really is can help you manage that risk. So our risk scoring is a 4-digit score, shows you time buckets as to how often we've seen a vehicle at a particular location. Those locations could be many or they could be few, depending on the scans that we have historically. And that information can certainly be translated into where you believe your system of record captured at loan origination, where your collection folks are starting to use to make that right party contact. If we can help you identify the fact that from your system of record has the vehicle at one location or expected to be at one location, however, we've never seen that vehicle at that location, that is a early warning sign of risk or potential risk as you go down that collections waterfall. As for collections, using our data in this, what we call, this would be our 60-day type of days past due. So as we go from portfolio monitoring into actual hands-on collection activities, collections can use DRN's web-based UI, what we call DRN sites. It's next gen. We're actually internally called it next gen. Now we call it DRN sites plus. We recommend that all collectors have access to this to help manage the risk proactively by monitoring their skip potential or the delinquency, particularly their delinquency earlier in the delinquency. Managing delinquency as early as first payment default using historical random LPR scans of vehicle location data with addresses captured at origination. Comparing those two are certainly going to tell you either, yes, my borrower is where we expect them to be, where our system of record is, versus no, they're not even close to where, either in the town or in the state of where we expect them to be. That could be a quick indication that you need to advance that recovery activity, or at least take another path for trying to make right party contact. Because ultimately, if we can help cure the loan using this data prior to recovery, time and effort is really what we're trying to help in the early stages of delinquency. So using our data earlier up in the front end prior to getting into the repo process, which for the last 15 years, we've been a leader in that repo and total loss process in terms of collecting your actual collateral. So the idea is using it from as early as first payment default all the way through, we have the ability to allow collections, to manage risk, collections, as well as recovery through a couple of different ways. One way is to assess the risk of the delinquency, low risk versus um, high risk. So if you have a collection activity going on, first payment default, second payment default, depending on when that collections waterfall, if we can show you that the scans are historical scans, if we can show those scans are close in proximity to the address that your collection system, your system of record, is expecting it to be, then you can continue to down that path of trying to make that right party contact, because you know that from an assignment point of view, you're probably going to be able to pick up that vehicle as you go further down that delinquency timeline. However, if they're close in that proximity, and we can help you make that connection by showing you where the vehicle is, then you can certainly tie the vehicle to where you believe the lender is or who you believe the lender is. Because quite honestly, all we track is vehicle location data. We have no idea who's driving that car. We have no idea why it's parked where it may be parked. We have no idea who's driving the car when we see it in transit on highways or parked in a one-off parking at a convenience store or a big box store. But we can certainly show you those locations in proximity to where your system of record is. So low risk would be they're right where you expect them to be, at least in the radius of where you expect them to be. And those scores are really but 4-digit address scores that are time driven, 0 to 30 days, 31 to 90 days, 91 to 180 days, and 180 days out through the end of the year. We give those scores. Not only do we give them scores, but we show you how often it's been a spotter car is driven by that location, so that you can actually make an assessment as to if you're at risk or the risk is low, or in this case, the risk is high, where you expect me to be in Dallas and it looks like I may be living or I'm least parked often at a residence area somewhere across town or even across state. So you have the ability to use our data to be able to make those assessments. So that's one area to manage risk early, as well as right through the actual collections pre-assignment activity. So let's move on and talk about any using real-time intelligence data. So our sister company, MVTrac, is the largest forwarder in the country. Their LPR recovery solutions provide real-time staging for collateral locations, aiding in efficient skip tracing and recovery services. MVTrac, along with our strategic partnerships with other selective forwarders, ensure lenders have extensive national options available for recovering their collateral. The idea as far as the challenges in the recovery industry and why it's important for a lender to use our data pre-assignment is, and we heard this extensively at Used Car Week as well as throughout the year, there are significant challenges in the recovery industry. And from post-pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, even up to today, cost of doing business. Everybody knows the cost of doing business is gone up in all areas, of not only in collections and recovery, just in life in general. Cost of living has gone up. Hiring and maintaining staff, assignment declines continue in the agent network, and then shrinking agent networks, as well as transportation issues and storage challenges. All of these are attributing to what has been happening over the last year in terms of declines are on the rise. Agents just can't run where you would have in the past have given an address of where you believe that vehicles should be located. If you haven't used our data preliminary up in the front end of the days past due, first payment default, and been able to give a solid address to the agents, they're just not going to run um, assignments. Early monitoring is going to help your agents who are facing certain market challenges. And the idea of these market challenges where, from an agent point of view, the cost of assignments, the cost of doing business, hiring staff, assignments that declines, shrinking agent networks, transportation issues, lot spaces, all of these are challenges that the agents have been facing. And the idea from using our intelligent data, our real-time intelligent data, is early monitoring by collections is going to shorten that agency's recovery time and uh, around those market challenges. So because declines have been up all year, they continue to rise. The shrinking market, agent markets are continuing to go down. A lot of vendors have left a lot of agents have left the market. But the positive news there is we've had a number of our scans have greatly increased. Our affiliates are doing more scanning than they ever have before, even in a shrinking market. So more data provided to a lender gives the lender the ability to really use that data to make a determination of what their system of record says. Where I live and where I work is captured at origination. I can show you, I being DRN, can show you where the vehicle has actually been. However, we don't know who the vehicle belongs to. We don't know who the vehicle is driven by. We don't know why the vehicle is parked at a particular location. That connection is really made by the lender and the lender system of record. But if I can show you that the the uh, the collateral is nowhere near where your system of records shows, that's a red flag from collections point of view, where risk being managing the risk can enhance by having access to our data earlier, can enhance the recovery efforts by using some of the information that comes from our LPR scans to put an assignment out to either your local agent or your forwarder out to the agent network. Then you can improve your recovery rates from beginning to end, not only from making right party contact, but in your recovery by giving solid addresses so that agent doesn't have to spend a lot of time trying to run your order. They'll run it 3 or 4 times if you're lucky. Most of them will run it 1 or 2 times because they're off looking for other lenders who use our data and provide solid addresses, and they know they can go pick them up. And then finally, this year we've integrated our diversified debt portfolio. We've added the ability to pull public record data through the same portal window. So now lenders who have other products, including auto products like unsecured debt around credit cards and student loans, where you're actually looking to trying to make that right party contact, we can pull that data and show you where that particular vehicle associated with your borrower may have been. And oftentimes that's at their next of kin or known associates, which a lot of our lenders are already pulling that data today. So it's the exact same data that you were already pulling from your public record provider. We're just providing you the ability to do it all through one view, one window, one portal, if you will, through a web-based application. It makes it just for optimizing your time and energy around trying to manage your delinquency queue in your portfolio. And so this is an example of pulling all the data from both LPR vehicle location and skip trace data of next of kin and known associates all through one window. It helps certainly in the recovery process and the collection process. And then finally, it's a full end-to-end life cycle asset management tool, comprehensive solutions aimed at reducing losses at every stage of the collection and recovery waterfall. So as a lender, having the ability to get access to our data, our historical data, really contributes greatly to your ability to make right party contact, as well as your ability to make an assignment with an address that you have strong belief that the agent or the forwarder is going to be able to pick up that that collateral at a address that's different than an address that you thought was in your system of record in your collection system. And finally, our true end-to-end solutions, DRN being data analytics, will help you through portfolio analytics, all that risk scoring, the idea of managing your risk, the amount of risk that you're willing to take on. We have alert processing, active duty alerts, loss alerts, skip trace, vehicle search. Loss alerts, I mentioned, deals with monitoring your portfolio against whether or not it's been impounded, reported lost, the reported stolen, a total loss or salvage or exported out of the country. What we did this year actually was added another alert called collision alerts. Collision alerts has to do with your collateral being brought into a repair shop and having an estimate on the repairs to be made. We can provide that information to the actual lien holder so the lien holder can know really what's happening to their collateral. And then finally, when you go over to the MVTrac side of the house, the services that they provide, particularly around forwarding, LPR staging, they have the largest agent network in the country. But they also have skip the repo and deep skip investigations, as well as remarketing services that was added this year. The deep skip investigations are those high value assets, those difficult to locate. Early on, MV cut their teeth in those things like airplanes and RVs and things that are of high value and no one really could locate. They have some great investigative tools to assist them and help them make them. So truly, from a DRN MVTrac perspective, a true end-to-end solution. We provide many a solution for all of our lenders, all the way through from portfolio analytics right on through recovery, repossession, and remarketing. That pretty much wraps up. We talked a little bit about impounds. We can save days of impound fees by automating that process versus waiting for the impound notification to show up in the U.S. Postal Service, and then salvage, theft, and export out of the country, and then the collision data added on just augments our ability to provide you vehicle location data through our LPR scanning. And that really kind of wraps up. I apologize for any technical difficulties. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but
absolutely. Again, we appreciate everyone staying with us and pushing through again, all at the mercy of technology out nowadays, but it can certainly be our friend, to say the least, just like our friend Mike Villanova of DRN and MVTrac, our featured presenter for our session, again titled Driving Success, Navigating Risk and Auto Recovery in Lending. And if you do have a question for Mike, please use the Q&A box here on the Zoom platform. And a couple of questions have come in, Mike, and one, and forgive me to the questioner, I hope I'm understanding it correctly. If it sounds as if it's the case, Mike, where a repo agent has done the scan and located the collateral, but it might not be an agent that this finance company has worked with previously. How perhaps can DRN and MVTrac kind of connect the dots, so to speak, to make sure that collateral is recovered wherever it might be?
Yeah, as part of our scans, what we show in our through the user interface of the vehicle location data, we capture what is captured is the picture of the license plate, a picture of the vehicle, a time date stamp, as well as longitude and latitude coordinates, and we also give the information of who actually scanned it, which of our agent in our affiliate network scanned that vehicle. So then that lender could directly reach out to that affiliate or it's a repo agent and who has our cameras. They were the ones who are taking those scans, um, and make arrangements for having that agent pick up that vehicle for them.
Excellent. That's great communication. And another question that's come in, Mike, and you started to touch on it a little bit, and it's a great one. Just how exactly does the technology work to be able to scan the license plate itself and find all of those specific details you just mentioned? I guess perhaps some nuts and bolts of how the technology functions.
Right. So the outfit, the camera systems are outfitted. There's comes four to a package, and they're pretty much either installed on the trucks and um, spotter cars in an affiliate network. They are actually mounted specifically on a spotter car where they're pointed so they can pass up to two in the front, two in the back, angled just right. So as they go by any vehicles, as they drive through parking lots or drive through parking garages or neighborhoods, they're scanning every vehicle that they go by. The reflective paint on the license plate is picked up by the camera, and so they can scan them at the in the dead of night or in the middle of the day. And they're capturing all of that information in real time, goes up to the cloud, and if you're a lender who is monitoring your portfolio and the VINs in your portfolio that have gone delinquent, um, the initial when they're entered into their instance of the application, we go out when we plate that VIN that they entered for monitoring, and that plate is matched up with all those scans that are captured by all the agents and throughout coast to coast, who are capturing the tune of 260 plus million license plates a month. So we'll capture that data specifically for that combination of VIN and plate that we have seen scans for and show the lender their collateral of where that physically has been.
Again, the voice you're hearing is the expert for today's webinar, Mike Villanova, the Senior Sales Solutions Manager with DRN and MVTrac in our featured presentation, Driving Success, Navigating Risk and Auto Recovery in Lending. And Mike, another question that's come in, and certainly a valid one to say the least with how things are nowadays, just wondering about potential scans and coverage in places like Canada or maybe Mexico. How perhaps can DRN and VTrac be of assistance there when the piece of collateral literally leaves the country?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, right now we're not scanning in either of those places, but we will scan situations where, like, if your collateral is being shipped on a container ship out of the country, those have to get registered in order to be able to be put on that container ship. But our cameras primarily are all not fixed cameras. They're all cameras, mobile cameras that are attached to vehicles that repossession vehicles, like our agent spotter cars and our agents tow trucks. So we're not actually scanning currently in Canada or in Mexico. Um, and that other side of our business is really more fixed camera activity, which we don't have access to those scans. So the 260 plus million are just coming from mobile cameras.
Very good, and that's good to know about the container ship element. If the vehicle is trying to be sent overseas somewhere, there's a way to capture that potential activity.
Yeah, that really comes from like service members who may be stationed overseas for a couple of years. They'll put their car on a container ship and ship it to wherever they may be stationed, and then so they have to actually make a reservation. And it's got to be a 30-day in advance to get um, put on that container ship. So we'll get notices of that.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Mike, if we could perhaps rewinding back to some of the opening portion of your presentation, if like to re-emphasize some of the points that you made about how can use the technology by finance companies to identify those potential risks before the contracts go delinquent. If you could revisit that risk mitigation capability.
Sure. No, I appreciate that, Nick. Yeah. So the idea really is, and this really was born out of the vertical where we sell into the debt buyer space. So a debt buyer is going to be buying a portfolio of auto loans, and they're trying to determine typically when you buy debt or you sell debt, you're selling what the balance is, and you're also selling what was captured at the system of record, who I am, where I live, and where primarily where I live and what the VIN is. And then what we'll end up doing is we'll run that VIN, we'll plate that VIN, make sure it has a valid registration somewhere in the country, which has the tag on it, the plate on it. And then we'll take that plate and we'll run it up against our data analytics and score where and how often we've seen that vehicle at various locations. Again, we don't know why the vehicle is at a particular location, but we'll score it based on how often we see it at that particular location in those time buckets that I mentioned, and we'll provide that information back to the lender, in this case a debt buyer, who would assess how far away some of their collateral that they may be buying or purchasing or servicing is from a given address that they were given. Same concept applies to a lender who has delinquency, like an indirect portfolio, even a direct portfolio, where I, as the borrower, decide that I'm going to move because it's cold up in Boston. I'm going to move to Florida for the winter, but I'm not going to tell anybody. And when you're going to look for that vehicle where you expect it to be, our scans will show you that we've never seen it in that particular address or in the area of that address that you're expecting it to be. What you're giving me is, the VIN, and we'll translate it to the plate. We'll just show you where it's been. You, as the lender, have to tie it together to where you expect it to be versus where we actually see it. And then you can make some assessments as to what's your next step in terms of your collection activity.
As we continue our webinar with Mike Villanova of DRN and MVTrac, and if you do have a question for Mike, just use the Q&A segments panel here on the Zoom platform if you do have a question for Mike. And Mike, as you just referenced, perhaps if there's an anecdote or two to share that can care to kind of tout the capabilities, especially of the MVTrac team, to be able to do those deep skip tracing assignments and be able to find that hard to find collateral. What's been maybe an instance or two here in recent weeks and months that has been a positive outcome for a finance company?
Sure. No, that's a great one. I'm glad you mentioned that to me because I tend to forget to mention about that. But post charge off recoveries would be a perfect example. The When an assignment is made, most lenders, it's in a time frame that the waterfall gets to the point first, second, third payment default, then they start moving towards repossession and recovery. If that repossession and recovery goes through they put an assignment out, whether or not it's through a forwarder or directly to an agent, there's activity, and oftentimes the lender will, if they haven't had any success, they'll move it to another forwarder or to another agent as kind of an overlay to see if they can, if maybe one gets luckier than the other. But then ultimately, if they end up having to charge that asset off, they'll write that off and they'll cancel their orders in terms of a repossession order. And once those repossession orders are canceled, then effectively no one's really looking for their vehicle. However, if you leave that vehicle monitored in the front end of our DRN site system as a lender for monitoring, it's their collateral after all, even though they charged it off. If they leave that for monitoring, I can't tell you the number of times that a post charge off scan has happened, and that if the lender takes the action to then go and recover that vehicle, it's going to drop right to their bottom line. Post charge off recoveries are a big area that I often tell lenders who are looking at our solution on the front end of recovery. I always remind them that you should always have someone in your collection team to keep an eye on post charge off recoveries, because those will eventually, they're kind of like needles in the haystack. You're going to end up finding something eventually on those that you've already charged off. So that would be one area of value that's hard to measure, but I would never, as a true collections, a collector and a collections resource, they never really want to give up. But once they charge it off, if they keep monitoring it in their own instance, if we see any scan activity happen for that particular VIN plate combination, we're going to show them where that location was. And then they can make an assessment as to what their next steps are for potentially recovering an asset that's already been charged off.
Excellent, excellent. That's great to know as well. And one other quick follow-up question, Mike, has come in about the coverage on foreign soil. Again, at this time, DRN and MVTrac do not have coverage in Canada, or if y'all work with a lender from Canada, it would be the case that they suspect the vehicle is in the United States. Would that be correct on both fronts?
Yes. So that's a great question about if the Canadian was on this side of the border. If that could be if it's so we could potentially scan it here, but we don't have cameras on the Canadian side of the border.
Okay,
So
very
we have it
good.
here, so they could potentially put that, if they knew the VIN of what that make is, we could certainly potentially monitor for that particular instance.
Excellent, excellent. Well, closing moments here with Mike Villanova of DRN and MVTrac for our featured webinar. Driving success, navigating risk and auto recovery in lending, and Mike, just to wrap us up, as you and I were chatting before we got today's webinar started. Which again, keep watch of your inbox for a message containing a link to the recording, so you can review the great information Mike has shared and distributed around to your colleagues. Just as we brace here for 2024, Mike, just how can DRN and MVTrac be of assistance, depending on what kind of turbulence we all might experience here coming in the new year?
Right. I'm a big proponent, and our staff at DRN and MVTrac are big proponents of using the data early. I mean, data is kind of king, and we have a lot of data, particularly around vehicle location data. So the idea of using it early in the delinquency, or even earlier than that, before you actually get into a collections delinquency process, as a lender, you're managing your risks around trying to build risk models. They use a lot of data sources for risk modeling, propensity to skip, trying to do predictive analysis. Our data can certainly augment the data that you're using in that area. And then earlier in the collections, to try to make right party contact, because oftentimes, whether or not it's early delinquency or mid-stage delinquency, you're trying to call and find that borrower at where you believe it is based on your system of record. Using our data early in that process can help you save time and effort by either confirming that I'm where you expect me to be, or I'm nowhere, at least the vehicle is nowhere where you expect me to be.
That's Mike Villanova, Senior Sales Solutions Manager with DRN and MVTrac. Mike, great presentation and conversation again here for today's webinar. Thank you again for sharing, and certainly all the best to you and the entire company team.
Thanks, Nick. You too. I hope everybody at Cherokee has a great holiday, and on to 2024.
Indeed. Thank you so much. And everyone, we thank you so very much for joining us, and we look forward to having you again next time.
Thanks, Nick.